Good afternoon, teacher. My name is Karen Nieto, and I'm going to talk about bilingual language behavior and acquisition. In that case, we are going to be focused on monolingual and bilingual speakers. At first, the second language processing in the brain, it is affected by factors like age and exposure to that language. In that step, we have two different events. First, the language learning challenges faced by infants who are exposed to languages. And it means bilingual speakers. At first, I would like to mention that they focus in the language development in bilingual infants or children, and by other hand, the language discrimination, which affects two bilingual children. Um, they used to think that if the children are exposed to both languages, it could be a little bit difficult for them to identify which are the difference between the both languages. For example, if we are talking about Spanish or English, could be difficult for them to identify maybe the syntax, maybe the phonemes, and also obviously the grammar rules. By other hand, there are the how learning uh, how learning a second language affects the language comprehension and production processes. The first is behavioral consequences of the bilingual effect on the first language processing. In that way, there are important items like, for example, um, the, the learners of the second languages can't control, monitor the two languages, especially in the speech production, and tasks may be determined out for the first language processing. And in the second item, neural consequences of the bilingual effects on first language processing. According to the studies, neural activity between monolinguals and bilingual young adults shows potential differences in language processing. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Master. I'm Lenin Palacios, and I'm going to talk about two of the theories of bilingual development. There are four theories in total that explain how children acquire two languages at the same time. Well, the first theory is the unitary system. Here, the child first construct one lexicon and one grammar, and then later add another one, and the child goes through three stages. The first is where the child has only one lexical system comprising words from both languages. In the second stage, the child develops two distinct lexical systems, although the child applies the same syntactic rules to both languages. And finally, in the third stage, the child differentiates two linguistic systems, the lexical as well as syntactic. The second theory is the dual system. In this case, children learn to separate lexicons and grammars from the beginning. Bilingual children select which language to use based on the context, and also they may say a word in one language and sign it in the other one simultaneously.
Hi, my name is Jorge Luis Baren, and I'm going to talk about the tripartite system theory. According to this theory, in a bilingual brain, each language has a separate system, and these systems store information to the language, while the similarities between both languages are stored in a shared system. For this reason, when there is a brain injury, only one language is lost and not both languages. Uh, in addition to this, because these systems have links, the languages can be mixed. But theory, this theory doesn't really explain why a person with aphasia can access a word in one language, but not the same word in another language. And because of the limitations of this theory, the following arises, which is the subsystem hypothesis. And this is the most widely accepted theory about the organization of the bilingual brain. And basically, what it says is that the bilingual brain is made up of a large system, and each language has its own subsystems, and these subsystems work independently, and each of these subsystems has its own phonology, morphosyntax, semantics, and lexicon. And this theory explains why a bilingual person loses only one language after a brain injury. This happens because the general linguistic system remains intact, but the subsystems can be affected.
Good evening, Magister. My name is Maite Caicedo, and today I will talk about bilingualism and its effects on cognition. Bilingual people use language differently from monolingual, which gives them cognitive benefits, such as better flexibility and daily independence. They can easily switch between language, keeping both activity in the brain. However, more research is needed to understand how language are stored and connected. There are different types of bilinguals. Some learn language in separate contexts, while others them, mix them. Some really their first language to understand the second one. Synthesis debate whether language are brain uh, mechanisms or are stored separately. But more studies are needed. Brain domain can affect language skills in bilingual depending on factors like age and proficiency. Recovery varies in bilingual often regain the most used language first. More research is needed to understand this process. Thank you.
Hello, teacher. My name is Jenny Aguachi. This article discloses the effects of brain injury of multiple individuals, influencing how different language may be affected or recovered post-injury. Psychologists and therapists face challenges in predicting how language skills, especially in bilingual individuals, might be disrupted through the brain damage. Factors such as age of language acquisition, proficiency, and the location of brain injury influence recovery. Some early and hypotheses like Savely Troiklen suggest that the last learning language will be the first to be lost in case of brain injury. However, more recent studies such as those by Marrero and the hardware that recovery and loss depend on multiple factors, including the brain representation of each language and different areas of language, such as syntax, vocabulary, and comprehension, may affect differently to their separate location in the brain. Recovery can follow various patterns, parallel, selective, and the differential language fully recovers and tacos and the language recover, but the regress successive one language recovers only after the other or blended a mixture of this pander. Almost study on bilingual recovery showed that the recovery is influenced by factors such as injury location, injury severity, age, and treatment. It suggests bilingual speaker might have a better chance of the spontaneous recovery compared to the monolinguals.